All right, so I was a little hesitant to put this out there, but I guess knock on wood, hopefully by sharing this, it helps someone, and my results just continue to compound. Um, so I've more than doubled my win rate since February. And if you're struggling with these market conditions, specifically the futures indices, and I trade NQ, and I know a lot of people who trade IC concepts do as well. Um, I hope that this will help. So this is my current results for March, but let's backtrack a little bit. Let's look at February's results. So here's this funded account. This is like the worst I've ever done. And after 2+ years of trading, a 21% win rate is, I mean, just absolutely ridiculous. It's probably one of those anomaly months that I'm only going to see once in a number of years, kind of thing. But one thing I want to point out here is look at this. Number of wins, 4. Number of break evens, 17. And 15 losers. And when I went and evaluated all of these trades, I found a pattern and a simple tweak that I was able to change to my system that, as you just saw, more than doubled my win rate. And that's this right here. Now, I'm going to share that tweak with you here in a minute. I want to show some other results that so this isn't just from 1 month to the next. That's not a lot of data. That's not a lot of information to really make any decisions, because here we have, 8 trades, and whatever number this totals up to, maybe it says the total. However many that is, I don't know, but it's terrible. There's not enough data to really make any decisions. So the changes that I made in my system to get these results, I have been backtesting them extensively. And I'm doing that in the year 2024 because it's just where I was currently at in backtesting. And I want to show you the difference between the old version of my model, or the adjustments that I made to my model, and what that difference made. So this here was February 1st. I don't know if you can see this up in the top corner. I guess you can't. February through June of 2024. And here was the way I would typically trade. 47% win rate wasn't bad. An average win-loss was 1.59. The trade expectancy was 396. You can see the results down here. Not too shabby. And these are kind of like more what I had seen in the past, was something a little bit more like this. But with the current market conditions, ever since probably November-ish maybe, I've been finding that things are just not working quite the same for me, and I've been having trouble getting any forward progress on my accounts. You can see this backtesting session. It was going pretty well. Nothing to complain about in here. And at this point in June, mid-June, is when I started backtesting the changes to my system. And the change, I guess, is really a single change. And what we can see here is the win rate jumped from 47.9 to 61%. The important thing here is win rate is actually a really terrible metric, because you can have a super high win rate and still have an unprofitable system. So we want to look at expected value, or trade expectancy, and watch what happens. The trade expectancy jumped from 396 per trade to 556. And the ironic thing is that I'm targeting way less. I'm just getting in and getting out super quick. I'm partialing quickly now. And by partialing quickly, the trade expectancy skyrocketed. And that's huge. That's a much more sustainable system and a much more profitable system. I've also done Monte Carlo simulations comparing these two, and the losing streaks with the updated system that I'm going to share what I did here in a minute, is about half as much. So with my previous 3R system here, targeting 3R, I would see a losing streak of up to 9 losses was statistically likely within, let's call it, a year time span. Whereas with my updated system, I'm going to see typically at most a 5-loss streak in a year. So it's almost half. So this system is just so much easier and been so much nicer to trade. And I think I'm showing that the results are so far speaking for themselves. So let's get into today's price action. I want to break down today's trades that I took. And within that, I'll be able to explain the small tweaks that I made to my system that have really helped boost the numbers in these current market conditions. So let's dive in. So we're on MNQ. Today's Tuesday, March 26th. And I guess we'll start with just a quick top down so you know kind of where I was thinking. Here's the daily time frame. Here's today's candle. Here's yesterday's candle on Wednesday. So we closed a compression candle where we failed to get above this tiny volume imbalance, rejected the compression candle on Tuesday, compression candle on Wednesday, and we're below the 50%. So I'm expecting to see sell side delivery. My draw on liquidity is this previous day low down in here. So I am bearish. We jump into the 4-hour chart. We can just see this nasty accumulation range we've been in all week. We closed below. We closed above this inversion on Monday, and then we closed below. And we did have an SMT this morning. So here's the 9 a.m. Well, 6 a.m. candle, but when 9 a.m. open, 9:30, excuse me, open happened. And we had SMTs down in here. But ultimately, my draw on liquidity was sell side, and that's just recently been met. Let's skip the 1 hour. We'll just go straight to the 15-minute. So similar on the 15-minute. Here, the blue line is the open. We had tons of targets towards. So overnight, we sold off hard. We had tons of targets towards buy side. We had the regular trading hours opening gap. We had the new day opening gap. We had midnight open. We had London's high, some relative equal highs up in here. So we had tapped into some higher time frame levels. Plenty of reason for the price to open up, take out some of these sellers that are in profit, and then trade back down. That was kind of what I was thinking. So for me this morning, I was open to both shorts and longs. I wouldn't mind a long if it presented itself down from the new week opening gap, a long up into premium, and then potentially a short down into discount. So that's kind of what I was looking at for the day. All right, so jumping into the charts, basically here's the trade setup that I took. And maybe what I'll do is I'll do a play-by-play on this, and that maybe shows a little bit better the changes that I made to my system. But what we've got in here is coming into the open this morning, I had seen this inversion right in here. And while I was bearish, and there is a nice 15-minute gap, there was no SMT up in here. So I wasn't quite interested in a short. So I was paying attention to this inversion fair value gap right there. And ultimately, when I saw that we swept liquidity down in here, created the SMT, tapped into some higher time frame levels, I was super interested in taking a long if this gap got inverted. And this candle closed super bullish right in here, ultimately forming a bullish breaker. And so I marketed in on that candle right there. I wasn't sure if it was going to come down and retrace. I don't typically like to wait for that retrace. I just typically mark it in and adjust my stop loss accordingly. Let me throw my position tool up here. I took 2 trades today, so I'm just finding the position tool. And then I'll put in a minute here, I'll get in and show you the changes that I made. Well, we'll talk through the changes that I made to my system right now as I'm kind of going through this trade setup, a little bit of both. So here's where I entered. I entered on the very next candle. And what I basically used to do is if I grab a long position tool. So if this was my and I'm trying to, I don't want to make this too confusing, so hopefully I'm not making it confusing. Basically, what I typically do is I previously target 3R. And so what I would do is here's 3R, and what I would do is where's 1R? So here's 1R approximately. At 1R, and this will kind of compare the two systems because they both have a similar 1R criteria. Trade partial. So what I previously would do is I would target 3R, and when I would take my entry, when price would move around, once price hit 1R, I would go break even with my stop loss and just ride it to 3R. And sometimes if it price came back down, it could tap me out at break even and then run to my targets without me. Sometimes it would do that, but more often than not, it wouldn't. However, what I saw a ton of last month is basically I'd get into a trade and maybe I'd get to this 1R level kind of thing. I'd move my stop loss to break even, and then I would get whacked out, and then price would either continue dumping against me, or it would run to my targets without me. And that's where you saw in these results here, 17 break-even trades, which even for this system was just ridiculously high. I had not seen anything like that. So basically what I did is I just changed my final TP to 2.5. and I partialed at 1R. That's it. Minor changes, ultimately I'm still trading the same models. I look for an inversion. I typically like the inversions. That's what I prefer to trade 95% of the time. In this case, I took the breaker. And what happened on this trade is I took my partial. Um, so here, I got my partial on the very first candle. I went break even. And then I got stopped out at break even. And what we saw with price today was it just kind of it resisted distributing a little bit. And it was just kind of a little bit of a high resistance liquidity run through this period of time. And eventually, price hit my TP without me, and price reversed. So this one was a little bit of a bummer because, of course, I got tapped out. I got partials. But what we can see with the system and the expected value and the trade expectancy is like I expect to get tapped out at break even, but I'm right a lot of the time. And in the case of this month, 77% of the time, I'm able to get at least a partial out of there. And if not a full win. Now, one thing to note with this backtesting session, these numbers are different because I'm trading with $2,000 risk on this backtesting session, which is all of my funded accounts copy traded. Whereas live, I'm trading with a single account right now, just trying to rebuild confidence after February. So here was that first trade. We can exit out of replay mode. And I'll show you the executions on that. So here's the executions: bought, sold, sold. So that was my first trade today. And if we look at my second trade today, it'll actually I took it on an eval account. Here we go. I think this is it. And similar kind of thing is entered on, it's a different account, so I don't have the executions without changing, but I entered on the close of this candle here. And then we can see I partialed at 1R. And the 1R is flexible. I kind of align it with the swing point, but I partialed at 1R and then went break even on this and then got stopped out at break even. But what's so powerful about these quick partials is it's allowed me to be wrong and right at the same time. Like on this trade, I was offsides. And technically both trades I was offsides. This trade this morning, it fit my narrative. And I was expecting to see some delivery to take out some of these sellers, which we did get. Just didn't go as high as I thought and not without as much resistance. But that makes sense, right? We're in a bearish market. We expect shorter moves in to buy side liquidity, and we expect high resistance when we're in a bearish market. That makes total sense. And then similar here, I was expecting the sellers to again get taken out for the lunch raid, and the lunch raid ended up just giving just a partial, and it ended up being there was two lunch raids. There was this long here, and then we actually had the trade really was this short, which was a continuation, closed below this inversion with a volume imbalance right there. That was the trade. So I was offsides. That's okay. What's really been awesome about taking these partials quick is I can get in and get out and be offsides and still get in wins. So I hope that helps anyone who's maybe been struggling in these market conditions. Obviously, maybe it's atypical to just hold for 3R. But the big lessons, the big takeaways that I've found in being able to make that drastic improvement in my win rate and my trade expectancy was basically partialing quick and going break even quick. And if you look at your own numbers, depending on your system and everything else, maybe you'll find that that's actually a better way to do it. Because I went and I looked at all of these trades. Had I applied those two changes to all of these trades, I actually would have been green on this month instead of negative 1.6K. And so that's pretty powerful. And for at least this, foreseeable future, while the market conditions are as they are, I'm going to continue to partial quick and break even quick. I'm typically not offsides that often like I was today. But in the case of what happens sometimes with NQ is when it gets really heavy bearish, it doesn't like to make my model bearishly, and it just looks really ugly. And that's why I can sometimes long against order flow. It's like, I'm not going to want to, this is high resistance. I'm not going to take a short in here, even though I know it's actually short. Like I told you earlier on, I knew I wanted to come up into somewhere and to take a short. Um, but this is what I've seen a lot with NQ when it gets very bearish, is the short setups are not that great. We get some long setups, like here was one that I missed right here. This long right here, this inversion was really nice. I missed it because I already taken a trade, but that was a super nice little setup. I would have ran my stop loss probably somewhere down in here below the inversion, and it would have given more than 2.5R. That was a nice little against order flow setup. So yeah, hope that helps, and I'll catch you in the next video.